Video games have been around for a while, and as long as people have been making them, there have been video games that cater to the multiplayer experience. Whether that was playing against your brother at a game of Mario Kart, or even working together in something like It Takes Two in order to progress the story, there's always been the option to play with others. Heck, you can even get together with some strangers online and play a game if you want. If you even want to get old school, almost all games that aren't video games are multiplayer if you look at it. But what about when you want to play a game alone, but still have that feeling of being part of a team, beating the game together? Well, I think that's where video game companions or sidekicks, I'm not really sure what to call them exactly, come in. I've been thinking about them a lot recently and just wanted to highlight some of the more memorable game companions, good and bad. Now, I found an article from the Association for Computing Machinery that says that companions are made up of 7 main aspects: appearance, sentience, individuality, behavior, communication capabilities, relation to the player, and significance. I assume that a good companion character would be fleshed out and unique in relation to these aspects, just generally doing these 7 things well. Unfortunately, this was a paywalled article, so I can't know for certain, but I mean, come on. I think these aspects are obvious enough that I can sort of riff off of them without reading the bulk of the article. Besides, I think in a lot of ways, the relation to the player or person is one of the most important things, and that's mostly what I'm going to be focusing on. My relationship with these characters will ultimately change my relationship with the game, I think. So enough yapping, I'm going to talk about some made-up characters now. I think when you think of a bad video game companion, there is the automatic reaction to think of one that completely ruins the game, or is only negative, or is just from a bad game in general. But something that is even worse in my eyes is one that gives you mixed feelings and just makes you wonder if you would have had a better time without them. And that's exactly how I feel about Daxter from Jak and Daxter and the whole trilogy. I don't know how controversial a take that will be, but it's just how it is for me. After looking into his character a bit more, I've learned that people were split on Daxter as a sidekick. Some critics thought he was funny, and others saw him as just an annoying side character, and that didn't surprise me in the slightest, because I feel almost a perfect combination of those two sentiments, especially as a child. It's tough to narrow down my feelings about Daxter, and I think that has to do with the fact that we get to see him develop throughout the course of the series, and his character does improve. When we first see him, he's the annoying counterpart to our silent protagonist. He's the constant talker who we can't get away from, literally always attached to our character talking in his ear. His presence is like a younger brother who won't let you have any space. While I don't think all of his dialogue is annoying and he is able to bounce his jokes off some of the other side characters in a funny way from time to time, it's just too much for me. He seems so surface level even to my childhood self, and he never stopped in every cutscene he was in.
I told you we shouldn't have come here, and you listened! What?
It wasn't that he was bad per se. In fact, he served the plot a lot and makes sense as a character and foil to Jak. It was more that as I always wanted to know more about the world and Jak, but he didn't talk, and that only made Daxter seem more non-stop to me. Even when he wasn't talking, it's like the threat of another comment from Daxter looms over you the entire time. Luckily for me and for the original Jak and Daxter trilogy as a whole, I think Daxter starts to come into his own more as the story progresses and takes on a darker tone. As the games got a little bit darker and leaned into gunplay, I think that the lighthearted nature of Daxter started to become a refreshing contrast to everything else going on in the game. He became a little less grating as his comic relief actually started to feel more like a relief from the wider game. It also helped a lot that you got to play as him a little bit more, so he felt more important to the story. Combined with the fact that Jak talks in the later games, it made Daxter a lot more palatable to me. I finally started to feel like I got an idea for their relationship instead of feeling like they didn't really have one at all. What was never really palatable to me were the companions in Skyrim as a whole, and I think this could be extended to other Elder Scrolls games. Skyrim is the one I have the most experience on since it's been available on every platform possible from the moment I gained consciousness. When it comes to Skyrim companions, my focus shifts to how they affect my gameplay. No matter what I do, it seems like these characters live to frustrate my experience, usually to the point that I don't bother with them at all and just play the game solo, completely losing out on that part of the game entirely. I know some people like those companions for their quirks, especially Lydia, but they have always felt a little too wooden to me. I never really thought I was dropping a good part of the game by ignoring this aspect. Whenever I'm interacting with Skyrim companions, it always felt like I was talking to a mannequin or someone made out of rubber or something. And that's not to say that's even a bad thing in games. It just feels like Skyrim and those sorts of games are made to be immersive and just knocks you out of the experience. There is a place for companions or for characters or NPCs that are like that. It can be funny and fun, but it just doesn't work for me in that game. The pauses in between dialogue and the way they stand and face me in the center of the camera never felt right to me. More than not being cinematic or realistic, it just felt too robotic to me and not in the good way. This sentiment could arguably be extended to all the NPCs in Skyrim. What makes it worse is you are always confronted with how weird it is when the companion is by your side 24/7. It becomes less of a quirky, cool thing that Bethesda does and more something that's just not good. Not that being weird means you can't be a good companion or sidekick character. In fact, a weird character with an interesting backstory can do a lot for a game and the experience in my eyes. I think that is most important is that whatever traits the companion displays, it does it well and it commits to it. Crazy concept for me, I know, but don't be annoying and be interesting. I've solved video games, everyone. I think a big thing that can make a good companion is an interesting backstory. It doesn't have to be overly complicated or that character's whole thing, but it definitely can add to the experience for lack of a better word. One character that I think has a fairly interesting background is Clank from the Ratchet & Clank series. Kind of the better version of Daxter, if I'm being honest. Like Jack and Daxter, he is always on your character with small standalone experiences where you play as him, but never feels exhausting to be around him. He also adds to your moveset, so it really feels like a loss, even from a technical gameplay standpoint, when the two characters are separated. Clank is also just a great character. Like I said a second ago, he has an interesting background. Even though it might be overshadowed a little bit by Ratchet, you never find yourself feeling bored with Clank. Even though he is a robot, he's just a super likable character and feels a lot more human than the companions from Skyrim.
Ratchet, this is no time for you to become cautious. We have reached our goal.
I don't know.
This is it. Quark is going to help us stop Chairman Drek.
Don't get me wrong, he's not perfect or anything, but those imperfections just add to what make him feel so endearing. He doesn't always get along with our main character, but his reasonings always have some logic or emotional beat behind it that only serves to make you relate to him more.
Get off of me, you idiot!
His usually calm and calculated personality is the perfect counter to the more brash and gung-ho nature of Ratchet. Their dialogue during the gameplay and in the cutscenes feels so real as we watch them become friends throughout the first game and grow into that friendship throughout the series. It really feels like you can easily see them as two friends with inside jokes and a connection that we have the privilege of looking in on, which I think they're supposed to portray, and they do an amazing job of. Clank feels less like a companion or even a sidekick, and more like an integral part of the series, even though you mostly play as Ratchet the whole time, and that's reflected in the name of the game itself. Not all companions have to be the most impressive when it comes to dialogue in order to be interesting or fun. In fact, when you're going to be spending hours with these characters by your side, it can be better if you don't find their voices grating by the end of the experience. That's where these companions come in. Much like a pet, they can't talk to you, but you still have a good sense of what they're trying to say. The first companion I have to mention in this category is probably the most like a pet because he is just a dog. Simple as that. I am of course talking about the much loved Dogmeat from Fallout 4. Full disclosure, I haven't played Fallout 4, but after talking to my girlfriend about this video idea, she was adamant that I mentioned Dogmeat at least a little bit. And I have to agree with her. I mean, I've heard how great he was forever, just from memes alone, so it was easy to put him into this video and agree with her on that. So from what she has told me, one of the main reasons Dogmeat is so great is because he is just a dog. No, but seriously, it seems like Bethesda was able to transfer all of the best qualities of a dog into a game without any of the drawbacks or responsibility of owning a living, breathing animal, which is crazy because in Skyrim, I feel like I have the neediest animal in my life with the companions constantly breathing down my throat. Think about it. You are in the destroyed wastelands of the Fallout series, and instead of being helped by a character chirping in your ear all the time, you have a dog that leads you to loot. Whether you need it or not, he's actually doing something of value in the game. On top of that, he's actually useful in combat. She wanted me to mention that it's great how he actually contributes to that aspect of the game without getting in your way at all. He'll bite onto characters, making it easier to aim at your target. This is especially useful for smaller enemies that can be hard to aim onto because Dogmeat will just straight up kill them for you. And who doesn't want a dog that will do that for you? I've never had the honor of playing it, but I think I get why he is so liked. And to wrap it all up, I have to mention BD1 from the Star Wars Jedi games. Now, I have to be honest, I love little robots, if that wasn't clear enough already with Clank, and Star Wars makes some of the best little robots around. They are to me what little animals are to my girlfriend and most normal people. This little guy could be completely useless, and I would probably still love him based on his design alone, but I think that's partly the point. There's so much personality shoved into this little guy that you forget that he's just a robot on a screen, and all of this is a made-up game anyway. He feels like he cares about you and wants to accompany you on your adventures for the fun of it. The fact that you can change his color schemes without losing his overall demeanor and personality is just a testament to how strong and lovable it is in the first place. Instead of feeling tacked onto your character in any way, he very much feels like an extension of you, and it wouldn't be the same if he wasn't there. And to top it off, BD1 is useful too. He helps you traverse throughout the world, lights up places that you otherwise wouldn't be able to see, and helps unlock new areas in the game for you. Sure, these are things that could be solved without a companion, but I think the fact that BD1 does all these things for you in a way that is unobstructive makes it seem like he's helping you, and it just makes it fit more with the universe. It makes sense for BD1 to do it because he is your friend and he wants to help you in the game. You're not playing this alone. You and BD1 are doing this together. But yeah, that's all I really have to say about him. Now, we talked about a lot of video game companions today, and if I'm being honest, most of these characters have something good going for them, even if I didn't paint them all in the most positive of light. Daxter, they all at least fit their world. Whether that's a good or bad thing is not always easy to figure out. Some of you might be asking, oh, where was this character? Why didn't you talk about this one? Well, there are a lot of video games, and sadly I can't and haven't and just won't play them all, so I don't really have an opinion on them. That's why I didn't mention some of the obvious choices like Navi from Legend of Zelda or I don't know, Cortana. I'm sure I'll get to those games eventually though, and I'm sure those characters are great or horrible. Hard to say. I don't know. But that about wraps up for me. Those are some of my favorite and not so favorite sidekicks in gaming. I just wanted to talk about them a little bit. Let me know your favorites or even your most memorable game characters down in the comments. I'd love to talk about it down there. If you liked this, feel free to subscribe. It helps me stay motivated in making these videos, and just generally, it's a cool thing to do. I'll see you all in the next video. Have a good rest of your day or night or whatever time it is. Yeah, bye.